For all you just joining us tonight, or repeat listeners or repeat offenders, or those joining us for the first time, please do like us, share us. This can be shared on Facebook or on YouTube Live. It's live, and here we go, taking off with another episode of Never Again podcast series with Meir Halevi Weinstein. And a little slow with the internet connection, but we will get there. We will be right back momentarily because the internet has just cut out, but we will be back, so don't go away. I do believe we're back on the air again live after having some technical difficulties. So tonight's show is with Meir. We have a couple of guests joining us this evening, and that includes Leon Kushner, a Jewish activist, blogger, columnist, artist, and avid fly fisherman, who states that he's a staunch supporter of Israel, as any Jewish person should be, which is the message of our podcasts. We also have Ron East returning again this evening, an unapologetic Zionist who's also the founder and editor of VJCA, which is the Canada's leading source for pro-Israel Jewish news. So tonight's episode coincides with tonight's Parsha, which Meir will talk about a little bit later, but we had a president. We had a president who is the most Zionist, pro-Israel, pro-Jewish president ever in my lifetime, most likely ever in the history of our country. And as we'll learn from the Parsha, a new king arose over the land. who did not know the Jews, nor did he like the Jews. But is he really running things anyway, or is he really just up there as a pretty face, while those running it are the other pretty faces in today's government of the United States of America? And to add insult to injury, Chile just decided to elect a blatant anti-Semite who doesn't believe in the existence of the state of Israel to be their new president. He fits right in with the president's administration in Washington, D.C. And we'll also feature tonight another known anti-Semite, Roger Waters, who just when he thought he was starting to quiet down a little bit, came out with a whole new rave and rant about our country of Israel. So do support our sponsors, Ron's JCA, as well as Leon's blog spot, which is The World is Upside Down. And keep in mind, during tonight's episode, what Albert Einstein said, that the world is a dangerous place, not because of those who do evil, but because of those who look on and do nothing. And we don't look on and do nothing. We hope that you'll join us at israelnow.ca. Like us, share us, support us. Without any further ado, here's Meir with the Parsha of the Week.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's Mayor Weinstein. I'm going to ask everyone who's joining us tonight, if you could please share this with the various pages and groups that you're part of. We'll reach a lot more people on Facebook, on YouTube, different social media platforms. We'd appreciate it. This week's Parsha, every Parsha pertains to exactly what's going on. It fits. And that's why the repetition to study the Torah every week, because there's lessons in it. It's necessary for our growth. It's necessary for us to remember who we are and what our commitments are. This week's Parsha is Parsha Shemot. And starts off in the Parsha where it says that and Joseph died. And then right after that, it says, and there arose a new Pharaoh, a new king who did not know Joseph. Now, there's actually a discussion with the rabbis. There's a bit of disagreement there. Some of them say, yeah, it was a new king that came about who had, no connection to Joseph. And there's other opinions that say, not the case. Same king. But Joseph served his purpose. Thank you very much. But we have no use for you now. You took care of the famine. Thank you for what you did, but we don't need you anymore, and he's not here anymore, and therefore they carried on with their anti-Semitism. Be it as it may. Also, we learn about Moses, and Moses grew up in the palace of Egypt, and he had a realization that he's Jewish. So he says he goes out and he sees an Egyptian beating a Jew. And he looks one way and he looks the other way. He doesn't see there's anyone ready to do anything about it. And Moses takes action. Next day he goes out again and he sees two Jews fighting with each other. And he says, what are you doing? And they respond to him and they say, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian? Moses realized the matter is known to people. And in fact, from our own people, They're talking about it. They're ready to inform on me. So Moses decides to leave. He leaves Egypt. He goes to the land of Midian, where Jethro is. And then he sees a sight that he can't believe. He sees an incredible sight. He sees a bush that's burning, but it's not burning. It's a miraculous sight to see. And he goes up. He goes up Mount Sinai. And he has an encounter with God. And God starts explaining that he's going to deliver the Jewish people and so on and so forth. And God says, and I'm sending you to lead the Jewish people out. Now, Moses is assimilated. Not only is he assimilated, but he's living with Jethro in Midian. And Jethro, and anyone that knows a little bit of background about Jethro, Pharaoh had 3 advisors when he was deciding what to do about the Jewish people. And one of them was Jethro. And Jethro managed to flee because he didn't want to give advice what to do about the Jewish people. But nobody stood up with any kind of plan to stop Pharaoh. No one. So Moses is with Jethro, and he's living not a Jewish lifestyle in Midian, and he has this encounter with God. But Moses had a sense of justice, right and wrong. So God says to Moses, I'm sending you to lead the Jewish people out of Egypt and to bring them here to this mountain where I'll give them the law. And then Moses says something, and this is very important. Moses says to God, who am I? Who am I that you should send me? I think that question that Moses asked, that's relevant, that's pertinent for every single Jew today and at all time. Who am I? Most want to evade the responsibilities. Most do not want to get involved, hardly get involved. You look at the demographics of the Jewish community in the United States, you even have, according to the latest Pew report, 20% of American Jews believe Israel is committing a genocide. It's complete nonsense. It's a complete fabrication. It has no basis in reality at all. But that's what's going on. That's the level of assimilation. We have serious problems today, and we have to call it up, and we have to stand up and take a stand for the Jewish people and for Israel. We have to stand up to this anti-Semitism. There's a lot of challenges. Every single week when we have a show, we highlight the anti-Semitism of the week. And I wish it didn't have to be like that. I wish it was such an anomaly that it would be maybe every 6 months, maybe every 8 months, maybe every 10 months or something like that. There would be a serious issue of anti-Semitism. But every single week, almost on a daily basis, there's a new episode of anti-Semitism that's occurring. There was the election in Chile. The leader of Chile now, he doesn't recognize Israel of any size, of any shape. He posted a few years ago on his Instagram account maps that are put out by the PA that doesn't recognize any Israel, any Jewish state of any size. This is Borak, the new leader of Chile. The Jewish community of Chile, they sent him, there's a picture of him there standing with a couple PA security. He doesn't recognize Israel. He wants Israel to disappear. He wants to bring about a law in Chile, a BDS law against Israel. We'll see what happens with that. Apparently, there are some relations between Israel and Chile. We'll see what happens. But the bottom line is, thank God we do have a Jewish state. It's a strong Jewish state, and it has to get better also. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. And when we read about in the past year, there was something like 20,000 Jews from the United States that made Aliyah to Israel. It's really, and that's an increase. That's like a benchmark, actually. That's something to be that's being celebrated right now. But there's a lot more work that has to be done. There has to be a lot more Jews going to Israel because of a population in the United States of approximately 5 million Jews. 20,000 Jews is not many. So there's got to be some kind of a shakeup in the Jewish agency, and you need the right people that are going to facilitate a massive immigration of Jews to Israel. not just to for the reasons of escaping, like negative reasons, escaping anti-Semitism, but the positive reasons to be part of a Jewish state. There was an issue that just happened the past week that a yeshiva student in settlement, Hamish, he was studying in a yeshiva, then he gets murdered by terrorists. And the government of Israel is set to demolish the yeshiva of Hamish. That's like a gift to the terrorists to do that. I'm sorry, I hardly ever speak out against the Israeli government because I don't feel, if we're not Israeli citizens yet, we have that right to do that. But in the issue of Jewish identity and a Jewish state and demolishing a yeshiva where this Jew was learning and murdered by terrorists, like just a week later or a few days later, that they want to destroy the yeshiva. That's really something that I can't relate to, and I think there's something that we have to raise our voices about. Also, Roger Waters in the past week. Roger Waters does a video, sends out Christmas greetings, and calls on the video. He says on the video that Israel has no right to exist on the globe. I started a campaign to send an email blast, and I sent a personal email to Larry Tenenbaum, who has it in his capacity to ban Roger Waters from appearing at the Scotiabank Arena this summer coming up. I think we should show the video of Roger Waters. It's really vicious, and
Christmas,
I'd like
I'm
to see
happy
him
to
banned.
say, and it will be less successful again next Christmas because it is becoming more and more apparent to global civil society that the emperor has no clothes, and this is a terrorist, apartheid, racist, colonialist, settlerist regime, the Zionist experiment, and that it has no place on a globe where we purport to support the idea that individual human beings have rights, irrespective of their creed, color, blah, blah, nationality, and all the rest of it. That would mean that Arabs have as many human rights, Palestinians should have as many human rights as Israeli Jews, and they don't. And we know that, and that there's nothing that Tel Aviv can do to convince us, the ordinary people of the world in global civil society, that they do have equal rights. And until they do, we're not interested in your propaganda, in your hasbara, in your explaining to us that Israel is a democracy. We all know that that's bullshit. There's nothing democratic about it.
Mayor White, actually,
so there was the rant.
let me
there
show
was
the
a
video
rant
of the
of,
police flying around also.
What's
So
that?
keep talking. I'm going to show another video.
Okay, yeah, that was the rant, the latest rant by Roger Waters, and I haven't heard back from Larry Tenenbaum, who has it in his Scotiabank Arena. Here's some more from Roger Waters.
Showing a pig floating around with the Star of David on it at one of his concerts. And last but not least,
because these people, AIPAC and ADL, and the other extremist Jewish lobby organizers, or Israeli lobby, I shouldn't say Jewish, Jewish lobby organizer, or Israeli lobby, I shouldn't say Jewish lobby, local mayor forbade them appearing on the show because some Jewish organization, some Israeli.
Yeah. Okay, so listen, we got some great guys on tonight, and we're going to be discussing these issues. we've had world leaders, including the Prime Minister of Canada, that have congratulated Gabriel Boric of Chile from winning. And, here in Canada, Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, he has adopted the IRA definition of anti-Semitism on the federal level. And how is it possible that he can congratulate this guy, Gabriel Boric, who wants Israel destroyed? And you have world leaders also that congratulated him as well. It's almost like the Wannsee conference in Evian, where the world was discussing what to do about the Jews that Hitler was ready to destroy. And they left the conference, and after great meals and great discussions with no plan of action, no one cared. And that was it. And Hitler saw that as a victory and annihilated the Jews. The world leaders today congratulating this anti-Semite. This anti-Semite, the Jewish community leaders in Chile, on Rosh Hashanah, they sent him a jar of honey, wishing him the best. And he sends back a note to them saying, no, thank you. Tell the government in Israel, tell Israel to leave the occupied territory. And he considers all of Israel to be occupied territory. It's a vicious anti-Semite. So listen, there's a lot of work to do, and we have to realize what the intention is of these today's anti-Semites, that they go after Jews. There's a lot of violence against Jews worldwide. There's campaigns to delegitimize the state of Israel. It's intensifying. So we have to be there front and center and defend our right to exist, defend the right of Israel to exist. So we have Ron East with us and Leon Kirshner. So let's discuss all this. Ron, how are you doing? Can't even hear you.
Let's see. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Better.
Okay. So I'm just doing very well. Thank you. And I want to thank you again for the opportunity to be on your show. It's a great opportunity every time I'm on the show. I just want to say, it's one thing for a world leader to congratulate another world leader, of assuming, presidency or leadership role in the country. It's quite another where you go beyond that and you say, as progressive countries, we need to work together and we need to cooperate. And so the Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Trudeau, didn't just go as far as just to congratulate Mr. Boric on his new appointment. He went out of his way to, talk about how quickly they need to meet together and as two progressive nations need to work together. No mention whatsoever in his congratulations about concerns about, his position towards Israel. No, nothing of concern about the BDS legislation that he's leading, and that's concerning for us because just a couple of months ago, Trudeau led together with Kotler this combating anti-Semitism conference, and he just reappointed Kotler into the position that he has in overseeing anti-Semitism, and combating anti-Semitism in Canada. So it's worrisome for us to hear all of a sudden from the other side of his mouth this congratulation to somebody, who according to IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which Trudeau adopted,
Right,
would be considered to be an anti-Semite. So it's very concerning.
No, absolutely. I was really shocked when I saw that the exact tweet that came out from Justin Trudeau. We'll work on social issues together.
As progressive nations.
Right.
So Trudeau tells us now as Canadians where he sits and which world leaders he sees as somebody that are friends or emulating him. And that's people like Mr. Boric, who said that he's left of communism when he was asked, where he sits between socialism and communism. He said he's left of communism. And that should be alarming for Canadians when their prime minister says that these two countries have a lot in common. Very concerning.
And on that also, I didn't read a word coming out from CIJA about that, or even from Erwin Collar on that, for that matter, which is pretty worrying also, because these are supposed to be the leaders of the Jewish community, and they're telling us basically just ignore it. Ignore what? ignore that the BDS feels more empowered by this?
Yeah, and the other thing I think that we're learning from Chile is, and again, I speak of it quite often when I'm on your show, and that's demographics.
Hmm.
And Chile has the largest Palestinian community outside of the West Bank or Judea and Samaria and Gaza. And I think the number is somewhere in the 500,000.
Right.
And compared to the Jewish community there, which I think is around 30,000 people. And you can see what demographics does and how demographics play a role in local politics and how certain leaders end up being elected to power. And as a result of demographic shifts and within a country, because when you look at the history of the relationship between Israel and Chile, it has been a very positive relationship, mostly, over the course of the relationship. But as demographics are changing, those relationships are changing. And the attitudes towards Israel are changing. The attitudes toward the Jewish community are changing. And if I was somebody of the Jewish community in Chile, and when I gave, the president-elect, an apple and honey to show solidarity, community coming together, we're one nation, no matter the difference, and he spits it back in my face and says you should go back to Israel and tell them to get out of the occupied territories. You're not convoluting, the Jewish community, local Jewish community with Israel again, which is again part of what the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism says is anti-Semitic.
Right.
And so I would be very, very concerned. And as a Jewish community here in Canada, I'd be very concerned again on the words that our Prime Minister has relayed over the last couple of days.
It's as if a Jeremy Corbyn was elected. I mean, you can imagine what would have happened in England if Jeremy Corbyn was elected Prime Minister over there. That would, I mean, the Jewish community in the UK was very concerned at that time, felt very threatened. The BDS felt emboldened. Absolutely no question about it. And there are a lot of attacks against Jews in the UK.
Yeah,
still going
absolutely.
on.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens now not just in Chile, but in Latin America as a whole. If people say the way that Chile goes, Latin America goes.
Right.
And so it'd be very interesting to see what the ramifications will be. I mean, it wasn't just Trudeau who congratulated Mr. Boric. Everybody in Latin America, stood in line, to see how far down they can go to kiss his feet and congratulate him on his win, which suggests, that Chile has a lot of power and influence within Latin America. And let's not forget, that a lot of what we see recently with the immigrants who are walking to the borders of the United States, start their routes, from places like Chile. And when you look at the large community in Chile, the Palestinian community in Chile, and when you look at the relationship between Mr. Boric and some of the terrorist organizations and associations with them, you start to worry about what kind of people can come out of Chile, and cross into the borders of the United States. And it's worrisome when you hear the language he uses and the terminology he uses. I'm worried.
Well, 100%. I mean, listen, we just had, today it was announced that Desmond Tutu from South Africa died. And Desmond Tutu has been a vicious opponent of Israel. He has shared the podium at press conferences with Hamas. And his anti-Semitism, even the Anti-Defamation League wrote a report on his anti-Semitism. Now, what's troubling about that, that's like the polite anti-Semitism, because Desmond Tutu, he's a minister, he's a church minister, an archbishop. For an archbishop to essentially say the Jewish people have no right to the land of Israel is a denial of the Bible. And this is the type of anti-Semitism that the Jews had to live with and deal with and die with for close to 2,000 years. This was one of the main reasons why the Zionist movement came into being, to reestablish the Jewish state in Israel. This level of Christian anti-Semitism, we have to expose it. And listen, there's a great movement, in the United States, Christians United for Israel, but they're not the only Christian movement. You also have Sabeel, that is, and Kairos, that are viciously anti-Semitic. You do have a lot of evangelical Christians that are on our side. Thank God. That's great. That's positive. But Desmond Tutu, he certainly represents a certain segment in the global Christian community that is anti-Semitic, and we can't ignore that. Also, Bernie Farber, who we have a picture of Bernie Farber. He posted on his Facebook page regarding.
Let me bring that picture up, Mayor, okay? Let me show you
Yes.
that picture of Bernie. And with a couple of quotes also, Bernie Farber has nerve to say that some, not all, to some, he was a controversial figure. I would have to say that to everybody, Tutu is a controversial figure, regardless. So his premise is inaccurate to begin with. Regardless of whether you like him or don't, he was certainly a controversial figure, not to some, but to all. But to many, he was a man who sought racial justice, right? To many, meaning Jew haters, he sought racial justice to fight apartheid. Apartheid, again, in Israel, not about Africa. So on a past Christmas pilgrimage 30 years ago, Tutu in Israel had the nerve to ask the Jews to forgive the Nazis for killing 6 million Jews. Now, I just can't wrap my head around that. He also stated much more recently, quote, and this is United Nations Assembly, I'm especially urging the Assembly to adopt the overture naming Israel as an apartheid state through its domestic policies and maintaining the occupation. And this is who Bernie is so proud to get a picture with. Anyway, back to you. That's all I have to say about this particular issue.
And let's talk about that occupation because, so Israel comes into being 1948. Prior to that, the UN proposes a partition plan, which the Jewish people in Israel accept. Okay, we'll divide Israel up. Now, prior to that, in the early 19th century, the British carved up what was called Palestine, the area that the Ottoman Empire controlled, which included Jordan. And the British Empire divided it. They gave almost 80% of the land to the Arabs to form an Arab country, and they called it Jordan. Now, in 1948, the war in 48, the Arab countries didn't want to accept any size of a Jewish state under even the partition plan that the UN proposed, that the Jews accepted. So they went to war to wipe out Israel. Israel won. And not only did Israel win, but the Arab countries still would not recognize Israel of any size, period. In 1967, prior to the war, Jordan controlled what is called by the Arabs today the West Bank. In fact, in 1964, the PLO was founded. The PLO was founded in 1964 with the express goal to destroy the state of Israel that existed pre-67 borders. So when Desmond Tutu talks about occupied territory, Jordan joined the 67 war to fight against Israel's existence. Israel won the war, and Israel took control of what they call the West Bank, what we call Judea and Samaria, that had Jews living there prior to the existence of the state of Israel. And in the 48 war, the Jewish communities there in Judea and Samaria were wiped out by the Arab armies. They were massacred, they were killed, they were wiped out, even in East Jerusalem. And there was no overture by the Arab side to say, okay, let's strike peace. War is ugly. You could visit the Kotel. We'll figure something out. There was none of that at all. So Desmond Tutu, who says he accuses Israel of apartheid practice in occupied territory, it's outrageous. And as an archbishop, he doesn't know the Bible. He doesn't believe in the Bible. I know the Bible. I believe in the Bible. Land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people. There's a lot of Arab countries out there, a lot. They control a vast amount of land, all kinds of resources. God bless them, let them develop it. But Israel belongs to the Jewish people. Ron and Lori, come on, join us.
Leon, come on in. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this.
I'm enjoying the conversation. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on. Let me start with Chile. Just a quick, my quick message to the small Jewish population. It's the same message I had to Europe's largest, once largest population was with the Jews in France.
Hey,
You
we can
there?
hear you, Doctor. Doctor, we can hear you.
Yes.
So yeah, when I told the Jews in France, and I tell them who are still there, run, don't walk, run out of there, because it's clear, we've seen over the last number of decades that France does not have your back. I don't care what the leader might say at any given time, and I don't care about the nice little, the odd little demonstration that they have, the pro-Jewish demonstrations they have on the street. If you walk around with the yarmulke, kippah, or a Magen David publicly in the streets, you are risking your life. So run out of there. So that's the same message I have for the 20 or 30,000 Jews living in Chile. Run out of there.
Mhm.
Don't wait. I wouldn't wait a minute. I mean, are you kidding? This guy, like you said, he's a miniature Hitler. Get out of there. Run for your lives now. Do it while you can. And as for the rest of us, this is always a touchy subject. Like, we live here, Meir, myself, we live in the beautiful city of Toronto, in a democratic, beautiful country of Canada. But you were just talking about our prime minister. We know that he says, sometimes he says, nice things. He subscribed to the, you said, the international definition of anti-Semitism. They usually vote well on the UN, like on the most recent horrific vote that they just had in the UN. Meir, you might want to talk about this in a minute. I'll let you lead the discussion, but thankfully they voted against it. But the United States, the UK, and many of our quote friends voted for it. So we know that we have a limited window in this world, in our lives. But right now, we live in a democracy, and it's relatively speaking, it's one of the best in the world today. But it's not great, and you're talking about earlier about demographics. Well, the demographics, if you follow the demographics of Canada, we've imported more Arabs and Muslims into Canada at a faster rate than the United States has. And so we're in trouble. Now, I'm not saying don't send me hate mail. I'm not accusing every Muslim of having a gun in his back pocket and wanting to kill us. But again, if you do the math, it's a simple math. There's close to a couple billion of Muslims, and if you take a very moderate estimate at, say, 10% or even 5% of a couple billion is a very big number. Let's say 5% do have the guns and do want to kill us. And we have the proof. Look at what's going on in the world today, not only in Israel, but throughout the world, the towers in New York, the Pentagon, in every bloody country, including our own. They've had Muslim terrorists killing Jews. It happens every day, every minute of every day, just about. So we have a problem, and we need to be concerned about it. And Trudeau is, as he's letting the door in for them to come in, obviously it's not only him. Most politicians pander to their electorate. That's how they get reelected. It's simple. So they pander to the electorate. So we have, once upon a time, Toronto had a large, relatively large Jewish population relative, say, to the Muslim population. Same was certainly true with Montreal years ago. Now it's reversed. So now that's why we experience what we see throughout, certainly Montreal. In every big city in Canada, we see it. We saw it in Toronto. I mentioned it last show in Toronto, where 30,000, that's my estimate, but about that number of Muslims and or Muslim supporters that are anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, took over downtown Toronto and they got away with it. This is during a pandemic yet, where in theory, you weren't allowed more groups than 50. And they got clean away with it. No one said boo. Nothing. Not the media, not our mayor, not our Prime Minister Trudeau, with his brother, who we all know is an anti-Semite. I mean, I'm not calling Trudeau an anti-Semite. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But if we've learned anything, and Meir, you mentioned it earlier in the Parsha, we can't rely on anyone else. And we certainly can't rely on him. And we'll talk about Roger Waters in a minute.
I just mentioned somebody in the chat just brought something up. I think this is relevant also. Somebody in the chat brought up Ahmed Shikari was the first leader of the PLO. That's right. And he was born in Lebanon.
Lebanon. Yeah.
Now, the left or the BDS narrative is that Jews are white European colonizers who came to, quote, Palestine in order to throw out the indigenous people there, indigenous Arabs. But this is nonsense. And it's not historic reality. And we have to say what the truth of the matter is. And Ahmed Shikari, the first leader of the PLO, and other PLO leaders, and many of these leaders, they weren't born there. They were not born in the land of Israel, in the boundaries of the land of Israel. They're born in Egypt and Yemen and you name it. You name it. And somehow they get away with speaking this lie that they are all Palestinians. One of the chants for the students from a TDSB school recently when they had a kafia day was in our millions, in our billions, we are all Palestinians. So it seems like an Islamic call to action that no one who is not Islamic or Arab has the right to own land in the Middle East, and for sure not Jews.
Mayor, I want to follow.
Yes.
If you don't mind, I want to follow up with a question to Leon, because I found what he was saying very interesting. And the sense I'm getting, and Leon, correct me again if I'm wrong. I haven't lived in Canada nearly as long as you have. But as we have this demographic shift, I don't see Canada opening up the borders. I don't see a large influx. There's nowhere for Jews to come into Canada to counterbalance, the imbalance that is occurring. So as the demographic shift will continue, just like it has in Europe, and we are living in a democracy, like you're saying, by the same token, our elected officials, cater to or pander to the electoral. Are we just living here on borrowed time, so to speak? Where do you see us in 10 years' time, 15 years' time? I always have a conversation with my in-laws. It's not about my generation, but what about my children or my grandchildren? That's the question I ask every day, and I'd love to hear your point of view and based on the things you were saying.
Well, that's exactly right. I'm not worried about myself, and I'm an Altacucker, and for your Gentile audience, that means I'm an old fart. So I'm not worried about me, but I am worried about my children and my grandchildren, which I have a few already, and God willing more. So that's what we should all be concerned about, our children. That's, one thing that separates Jews from most other ethnicities or other religions is we really, generally speaking, care about our children. That's it. And it's a Torah principle for sure, but we do. I would even hazard to say that secular Jews care about their children. Now, they may not put the emphasis that we, the three of us, would put on, i.e., fight anti-Semitism, be a proud Jew, but they'll spend lots of money on sending them to university and camps and buy them cars and all that stuff. So we really do care about our children, as we should, and I would hope that most other people do. So the point is, look, I can't predict time. I laugh at people who predict, so I wouldn't dare predict when and where. And God willing, things will turn around. They could turn around tomorrow. But as we see things progressing here with Trudeau, who keeps getting reelected time after time, by the way, as we know, the Jewish vote, I know we're a small number, but I forget what the percentage. Maybe you could tell me. But I think it was in the 70-something% of Jews vote liberal, so they vote for Trudeau every time. So as things are going, this is not looking well for us. Now, it's always a very touchy and almost like in the boiling pot story as to when do you leave? When, in whatever country you live in. Well, I mentioned France, I mentioned Chile. You can talk about the UK, and you can mention other countries throughout the world. When is the time to leave the shithole, the anti-Semitic shithole that you're in? Now, Canada isn't there yet, and there is I subscribe to this, but I'm just a guy. It's my Leon's private opinion that I believe in courage, and I don't think that we should just run from wherever we are in the diaspora. No, I don't subscribe to that. Yeah, I mean, if you want to go to Israel, move to Israel, but you shouldn't just run with your tail between your legs because someone called you a dirty Jew or something like that. No. But when you see the writing on the wall, when you are outnumbered and it's dangerous for your children or your grandchildren, then yes, then run. Now, of course, you're free to go there anytime, and you should if you want. It's a beautiful country. We should. I've lived in Israel, and we should all go there. And it still kills me how many Jews I know who haven't been to Israel, right here in Toronto, and it's not monetary related, or worse, haven't sent their children to Israel. You know, we have.
What is it? What is it related to? You said it's not monetary related. What is it related to then?
That's $1 million question. I think they're just busy playing golf. Ron, I honestly, I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
They're not, they're just not focused. Israel, and being a Jew at any level. Look, I'm a secular Jew, but I am the proudest Jew on the planet. For me, being Jewish is winning the $1 billion prize. And I think every Jew on the planet should look at it, whether you're a Haredi Jew or whether you're a secular Jew, or Reform, whatever you want to call us. That's the way you should look at it. Baruch Hashem that we're Jewish. Thank God we're Jewish. And unfortunately, so many Jews just, they don't get it. I don't know what it'll take for them to get it. I have a feeling the answer, I'd like to hear your thoughts. I have a feeling the answer will be when, God forbid, some bad men come and, beat them up or worse, hurt their children, some real anti-Semitic people do it, then maybe then they'll say, hey, you know what? They'll either two things will happen. They'll try and run under the bed and put a cross over their face and pretend they're not Jewish. We know how that didn't work in the Holocaust. Or they will then say, hey, you know what? I'm Jewish and I'm gonna move to Israel. I don't know.
Yeah,
Meir, what are your thoughts?
I think, on that note, I think like it's one thing to ask the Jewish individual in in Canada, the United States, or wherever they're from, to ask them what the reason is and all that. I think it really should speak to the leadership that there is in our community, in our Jewish communities. And I don't believe that. Well, it's not that I don't believe. I could back it with evidence that is really so low on the totem pole for them, and we do not have strong leaders, and they certainly don't fight against the BDS or any of the anti-Semitism and that. I've been on the forefront fighting against anti-Semitism, and these leaders are just receiving their inflated paychecks, be it rabbis, be it community leaders from CEJA, I can list other organizations, They're not doing an effective job. It certainly is a pathetic job that's being done on campus as well, combating the BDS. It's a complete joke. So there's got to be really an overhaul of leadership, and then a massive educational campaign, working with, I would say, a revised Jewish agency in Israel that's into it. They've had some not great leaders in the Jewish agency for a lot of years. That has to be changed, and something has to be done in that direction. And therefore, and because of the lack of this, we are stuck with people in the community scratching our heads, trying to figure out what the reason is.
You're right. Well, I agree. I agree. The leadership is a big. The pathetic leadership we have plays a role too. No question about it.
Yeah.
It's lack of leadership. It's not
Right.
leadership. It's lack of leadership. There is no leadership out there, and we've spoken about it, before. And if there is leadership out there, it's already been so overtaken by elements within our community, from the progressive left, if you want to call it, from the J spaces,
for instance, Ron,
and
when
the New
you're
Israel
trying to hold
funds.
a protest in Winnipeg, a car rally for Israel during the height of this war that was going on against Hamas in May, and you receive a legal letter from the
Cease and
representatives
desist.
of the Jewish Federation that you cannot, bingo, that's the point.
Yeah, a cease and desist letter that we should not be holding our rally, and if we're going to hold a rally, it should not be outside the Jewish Community Center, and we should take any reference of the Jewish Community Center off all of our communications, and that they're hiring extra security to ensure that we don't get access to the parking lots, and they're going to bring police out there to make sure that we behave ourselves. This is my own community, against a pro-Israel rally that is being held through the community, for the community, by the community. And it's the same community leadership that every year allows, the BDSers, the independent Jewish voices of the world, to hold a rally just outside their doors during what's called Folklorama, which is a week-long event here where different cultures share the cultures through dance and food. So they stand outside the Jewish Community Center, calling us baby killers, apartheid, BDS. Not once did they send them a letter. Not once did they threaten them with a lawyer to cease and desist. And you know what happens when they're done their protest? Some of the guys from the Independent Jewish Voices go and put their stuff in the back of their cars in the parking lot of the Jewish Community Center, take out their gym bag, and then walk across the street and go work out and exercise in the same community center just 5 minutes ago. They call the people in, they're baby killers, apartheid, and the community, welcomes them with open arms. Wonderful. That's the problem with our community. That is, and that's not leadership. Leadership takes guts. Leadership takes standing up for what's right. Leadership is not just about fundraising. And our leadership always is all preoccupied with fundraising. It's from one fundraiser to the next, one fundraiser.
So true.
That doesn't do anything for us. Leon, I'll tell you, I shared with Meir, and I'm not a meme, but actually from the Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East, they did a comparison between themselves, B'nai B'rith, and CIJA on social media. So they looked at how much money each organization gets per year, and it's easily accessible because they're all charitable organizations, so you can just go and read. And then they look to see what the reach of every organization is on social media, how many followers, how much whatever. So CIJA came in at $11 million. B'nai B'rith came in at something like, I think, $2.5–3 million. And the Canadian Justice for Peace and Middle East came in at $215,000. Who do you think had the biggest reach, the biggest impact, the most followers, the most views, the most interactions, the most anything out of those
Canadian Justice for Peace? No, of course.
Then you ask, then you sit back and you say, what does 11 million bring me? What was the return on investment?
I can tell you what it brings you.
It brought me more anti-Semitism, more hate.
$200 a plate dinners at some fancy hotel.
But it doesn't bring you, me, and Meir in our community any sense of safety or security. It doesn't cause the anti-Semitism to go down. It doesn't pass legislation to make this a hate crime. It doesn't stop like today on the 401 in Mississauga of them hanging up signs, calling it an apartheid state. It doesn't stop any of this stuff. but it's $11 million. You know what? Give Meir $200,000, stand back, and see the impact he will have.
Listen,
That's what burns me.
Let's do this, okay, guys. Let's do this. I don't think we're here we could bash the big Jewish organizations all day long. We're not going to do that.
It's not about
because
bashing.
we got some. That's not our job. That's not what we do. We pointed out their what's the right politically correct term to call them? Ineptitude. Let's just leave it at that. There's room. I say this. I've always said this. There's room for all of us. There's room for all of us. Gesundheit. Let's have the Simon Wiesenthal Center and their multi-million-dollar budgets, and Siege and their multi-million, and the B'nai B'rith and whoever else, and Meir and other organizations. I'm part of other little organizations. And I CIJR, CIJR? They're more of a research, and God bless them. They have a tiny little budget. I don't know how they even survive. And they put on excellent, wonderful lectures in Toronto in little tiny venues, and they might give you a few cookies with it. And they're fantastic. And you know what? They do on a dime. That's the way you do the outreach. Unfortunately, they could use more money, no question. So could we all. You know what? Whenever I deal with an organization, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Chabad. I don't care if it's Sija, whoever it is, where the first question they ask me is, can you give me money? It kind of turns me off right away. And it should turn everyone off. Because if that's your first priority, then you got your priorities screwed up.
Then you know what, Leon, I'm going to call then all these organizations, big and small, with big budgets and small budgets, to join Meir and to join Israel now in the campaign that we're having right now with Roger Waters. And I want to bring us back to the Roger Waters episode. I think that's one of the bigger challenges facing us the next few months.
I believe that
Meir, go ahead.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Larry Tenenbaum is also on the board for CIJA. Now, are we against an anti-Semite performing, who's front and center for the destruction of Israel, to facilitate him? Is this the position of CIJA to be quiet because they're going to get a check from Larry Tenenbaum? And he's a philanthropist. Obviously, he's done some good stuff in the Jewish community, no question. But here's the thing. Maybe there's a contractual problem. I got a solution to it. Here's an out for Larry Tenenbaum. Okay, so if there's a legal problem, that there's a contract that's signed and you can't get out of your commitment to allow Roger Waters to perform at the Scotiabank, then make an announcement that the profits that you're going to reap from that performance are going towards something in Israel, something positive in Israel. And that's it. And therefore, every single BDS person who's going to purchase a ticket to see Roger Waters should know that part of that ticket that he paid for is going to help Israel.
Brilliant. I love it.
Meir, I can't believe that there is a contract anywhere in the world that is so tight clad that somebody can go on TV and say the country needs to be annihilated from the world, just like we just saw with Roger Waters, and that somehow his contract is protected, in such a way that one can get out of it. Because I assume if he would go on TV and ranted about Black Americans or Indigenous First Nations of Canada or the LGBTQ community in that fashion, he would be canceled the next day, no question asked. People would get the refund. So again, the double standard is what bothers me. And somebody like Tenenbaum should be provided that video and be encouraged to watch it. And if that video does not cause somebody like him to reconsider his own involvement, even if he cannot on his own remove him, take at least a position on this, again, it's alarming because, as you said, this person is a person of authority within our community, a person of a lot of respect, sits on many boards, influential. It's important for our community that a person like him does take a strong position here, regardless.
True. It's simple. It boils down to, does he care more about the dollar or does he care more about us?
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
And it'll be
And
sad
he's
if he cares
gotta-
about more about the dollar. It'll be sad.
Now, is this the same Tenenbaum that used to sponsor York University's music program?
Well, he's with the Tenenbaum
I know it's a big
so-
family.
yeah, he's with the Tenenbaum family, so
Okay,
probably.
so you're I know Meir knows
Yes,
this.
that is the same Tannenbaum who supported that. He, again, not in his defense for the Roger Waters deal, but he certainly is an incredible philanthropist for Jewish causes.
Right.
And his
No
family
question.
his family came from Poland in 1911 to New York to escape anti-Semitism. So you would think that in homage to his family, now that he knows how blatantly anti-Semitic Roger Waters is, that even if he means breaking a contract, he's very wealthy, even if he means paying a fine, he's still at this point, regardless of all the good things he's done, he's willing to cancel the concert.
Well, I'm not so sure if there's even like a legal problem with breaking the contract. That if you accept the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, that has been accepted by the federal government and the provincial government as well, that an institution of the Scotiabank Arena should pay attention to that acceptance of the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. Here you have Roger Waters, who definitely violates everything in the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. This is your place. You cannot facilitate it. That's it. You cannot facilitate Roger Waters to perform
Right.
at your arena, and that's it.
That's what I would think.
I remember last year during the hockey season when the Maple Leafs in Toronto were playing and all the other teams were playing in empty arenas. And before the first few games as the season started, you would have some players that would make a statement on the issue of Black Lives Matter and racism. And everybody had to pay attention to that. I think it was just before the national anthem was being performed. And so they want to take a stand against racism. Okay, and this was done at Scotiabank Arena as well. You want to take a stand against what you call racism. Well, now is the time also for Larry Tenenbaum to stand up to the plate and say, I take a stand against racism, and I include in that stand a stand against anti-Semitism. And this is a raving anti-Semitic lunatic who wants to perform at my venue, the Scotiabank Arena, and he cannot. That's the way to put it.
And I think the political
couldn't
leaders,
agree more.
both in Ontario and nationally, should also be encouraged and pushed and influenced to come out and make statements. You know, they might not have any control on who performs or doesn't perform at the Scotiabank Arena, but they certainly have a voice and an important voice. And if they come out and say this is unacceptable for somebody like that to be performing in our city, and we encourage those in charge to reconsider, you know, that can also help, like we did here in Winnipeg when Linda Sarsour came to Winnipeg, and we pulled together the mayor of Winnipeg and the deputy premier of Winnipeg came out with strong statements against her visits. You know, the mayor went as far as to ask her not to come to Winnipeg at all. You know, it went a long way into giving us great support and in making her event here much less powerful than it would have been if these people didn't stand up and call her out. And I think part of our action should also be to turn to these people and to our friends within the political community and arena and ask them to join us in this fight. This is an important fight, even if it goes on.
You know, I sent a private email to Larry Tenenbaum. I have his private email address, so I sent him. I haven't publicized that email address, by the way. I want to ramp up the campaign because it's necessary, because the Scotiabank Arena is now on social media publicizing Roger Waters coming there, and they're ready to give incentives to people to come. So we need to ramp it up. But I do have the private email of
I used to have it because I found it. I never kept it. but I found it. I dug it up. I'm pretty good at digging up stuff.
No, I
And
got it
when
from someone who was on the board with him.
that's fine. I found it somehow, and I sent him an email thanking him. You remember they have the infamous uh, Palestinian painting at York University in the hall there. I'm sure it's still up.
Yes.
Of a tank. Supposedly, it's a terrible painting done by an Arab student who goes there, who depicts a tank, an Israeli tank, about to tear down and run over a house in Israel somewhere. And so I asked him, because I knew that he was sponsoring the music program. He was giving millions of dollars every year to York. And I asked him, look, you have some power. You have some power there. Why don't you, do something like, you know what? No more money for you unless you remove the picture. And he said he did. He said he would. So, I'm not judging him. I'm not going to judge Larry Tenenbaum or the Tenenbaum family. I know they've done a lot for Jews in Israel and for people in general. So, God bless them, and God willing, he'll do the right thing. But I mean, I don't care about legal contracts, Mayor, what you said earlier. There's no question you played the vile vitriol that came out of his Roger Waters' mouth and continues to. It's never stopped for decades. He has clearly crossed the line on anti-Semitism and racism right here in Toronto. So he should be charged. He should be
Right.
charged and put in prison. And if I was Larry Tenenbaum, I'd say, look, yeah, I have a contract with this guy, but I don't want to go into jail because I'm producing the event, so I don't want to get charged with anti-Semitism by producing it. I mean, there's a million ways I could see.
Right.
I'm not a lawyer to get out of it. But let's
Right.
talk about, if you don't mind, let's talk about our friend Roger Waters. He's a very dangerous person. Here's the problem. As you know, he's a co-founder of Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd has been around for generations, and they've successfully crossed the generation. They were a lead band when I was, a teenager, internationally acclaimed. But they've managed to cross to the next generation. The younger generation behind us loves and follows Pink Floyd too. And there's a real problem when you're a famous band, and look, he's going to perform. God will, God forbid, but he performs all over the world, and he's got lots of money. Last I heard, he's got over $310 million personally. That's what we know. What he has. Who knows what we don't know? So a person like that is very dangerous. If he was just a nobody in some shitty little band somewhere with $10 in his pocket, we wouldn't be talking about him. And the problem is, and believe me, I've been it's funny that you're bringing him up on the show, because I'm into music big time. I play guitar, pretend to. I love music. I listen to it all the time. And so I've been following Pink Floyd for years. Guess what? I no longer listen to them because of this vile anti-Semite. I believe his father was an anti-Semite too. So the trouble with him is so many of our own, and you kind of alluded to it, I think, one of you, aren't aware, even today. I know it's hard to believe that today so many people, Jews or not Jews, are not aware at all of his anti-Semitism.
Right.
You showed the picture of the pig with the Jewish stars on it. Many people in the audience are not. It's subliminal. They don't even get that. Unless you've heard him speak, then I've heard him speak at the UN years ago, and let me tell you a quick story. I published the video. I sent it to all my friends and colleagues. And my cousin, God bless him, who I love dearly, and he's obviously a pro-Zionist like us. He's a Pink Floyd fan. The video I had was a little clip. The audio and the video were not synchronized. I hope my cousin's watching, because he'll know what we're talking about. He said right away, Leon, that's a fake video. Can't you see that he didn't say that. The audio and video, they don't match. So I said, look, cuz, I'll find you the real video. Trust me, it was him. It was just a poor video. And I found the whole hour clip. It was where he was a guest of our best friend, the UN, who had him speak on one of many committees. And he was just as vile as ever. And that was it. I mean, I listen to Q107 in the morning. It's a popular rock station on the radio. And they often offer prizes to see concerts. So when they offered a prize to see Pink Floyd, whenever it was, or maybe it was just Roger Waters on his own, I asked them, and I've written many letters to them, please stop offering that as a prize, because when I want to see a concert, and I see lots of concerts, I want to hear the music and enjoy the concert. I'm not there for politics. You know, even if they're pro-Israel, really, I don't want to hear it. I'm there for the music. Keep politics out of entertainment. I'm sick and tired, and I'm sure many people would agree. I'm sick and tired of actors and musicians and band members and artists and God knows what.
we have a video.
Mayor, before you go, Mayor, before you go on to the video,
Yes.
the doctor, if you can do me one favor, there's one person on the comment section there where I'm really not appreciating the comments being made, attacking people who are actually on the show, calling people morons, saying that some stuff is a responsibility of the Zionists and government, going on and on about vaccines. If he wants to call us and be on the show, that's fine. But name calling people who are coming on the show as guests is unacceptable in my opinion. I just want to put it out there, and Mary, you can go ahead, but that's where you cross the line in my opinion.
So
Yeah,
right.
we can block
We
them.
have, so let's, I'm going to block that person, but let's go look them up afterwards, and I'll let everybody see their name on the screen. So
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt everybody, but I didn't appreciate when Leon was talking
yeah,
some of the things that were being put up that are inappropriate. Sorry.
okay, they're blocked.
Thank you.
Okay. So let me show
Go
you
ahead,
the
Mayor,
video.
you were saying.
Well,
No, we're
quick
gonna show a
break
video,
just to bring
video.
everybody up to Roger Waters, who may not be as familiar as you guys are. So just, it's about 2 minutes long.
Roger Waters, a member of the band Pink Floyd, has had a busy couple of weeks in New York City. On December the 12th, he was invited to sing at Madison Square Gardens at a hurricane relief concert. And on November the 29th, he was invited to speak as the only so-called civil society representative at UN International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. Here's Waters' UN performance.
Israel is guilty of a number of international crimes: apartheid, ethnic cleansing.
And Roger Waters didn't stop there. The UN website now hosts a copy of his complete remarks. As Waters volunteered,
The full text will be available to anybody who cares to read it at the end of this meeting.
in it, Waters makes the classic anti-Semitic slur of analogizing Israelis to Nazis. In his words, history tells us that the invasion and occupation of a land and the subjugation of its people almost always creates a resistance. Ask the French, or the Dutch, or the Poles, or the Czechs. Before his UN audience on November 29th, Waters continued.
Following a 2005 call from Palestinian civil society, social movements, activists around the world have created the campaign for boycott, divestment and sanctions. And I support it wholeheartedly. The leaders of Hamas have made their position clear over and over again. It is this: Hamas is open to permanent peace with Israel.
Here's what Hamas Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh has actually made clear over and over again. Take Haniyeh on Al-Aqsa TV in January. Instead, in Waters' contribution to the UN website of his complete remarks, he blots out the 1.5 million free Arab citizens of Israel and concludes by championing Israel's illegitimacy and urging UN states to declare Israel's continued membership of the UN to be dependent on reform of its illegal apartheid regime. Roger Waters, frontman for a rock band and hero to genocidal terrorists.
The run at the end
Yeah.
was the best.
That video of him talking at the UN was the one that I was sent out
Right.
years ago.
Right.
And again, it's just such a shame that so many, especially the younger generation, but even our generation, that they don't know. And we could I could in the same breath I could mention Bernie, or your best nemesis, Bernie Farber. I asked this question at the gym, the Prosserman Center that I go to, the JCC, the Jewish Y, so to speak. And I did an impromptu survey of my Jewish friends there. Who would say is the most known Jewish leader that you know of here in Canada? Guess who the answer was?
Farber.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
who else is there?
no
Who
question.
else do they know?
I agree. I agree. But that's the problem with our own community. That's the problem with our own community and our own leadership, and everything that is not right about our community isn't that a perfect example you just made.
Well,
So,
listen,
yeah,
we have to wrap up the campaign about Roger Waters. No question about it. And other campaigns that that we're working on. Absolutely. But the show has been, I don't know, I think already about a little bit more than an hour and 15. Let's go with concluding remarks. We'll continue next week. There certainly is going to be no shortage of what we have to discuss next week. Every single day, like I said, there's another incident, major incident, and we're on top of it. So we covered a lot today. We covered what's going on in Chile, and when you look at what's going on in Chile, you got to know that something. And just like it says in the Parsha, a new pharaoh arose, a new king arose, new anti-Semite. That's will happen in other countries as well. And, we can't be asleep at the switch. Roger Waters planning to come to Scotiabank Arena in Toronto and other venues as well in North America has to be opposed. No question about it. We have to contact Larry Tenenbaum from the Scotiabank Arena to cancel it. As far as I'm concerned, it's black and white. You cannot facilitate, you cannot invite into your own house an anti-Semite. It's that clear. So final words from everyone. Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Listen, we're facing a tsunami. It's not just a winter storm; it's a tsunami. As we're sitting here and doing the show, I've already gotten several alerts on anti-Semitic incidents that's happened, across Canada and the United States over the last 24 hours. Whether it's painting of swastikas on buildings or students being caught, doing the Zig Heil and putting swastikas on their chests, to another university that's adopting a resolution that's anti-Israel or anti-Jewish for that matter. We got to keep doing what we're doing. The best we can do is do this type of stuff like your show and the J.ca, Leon's blog that he has. We need to bring as many people, like-minded people like ourselves, together around the table. There's something to be said about numbers. We got to work closer together. I don't think the battle is lost, but I think it's a battle that we all need to be willing to fight. And like Leon said, running away is not the answer, but facing this anti-Semitism head on and doing each one of us the part that we can to play an impact and influence would be important. The more of us to do it, the more influence that we'll have in the long run, and the better our society and our community will be, and the safer we'll be as a community as a whole. So keep up the good work, everybody. Leon, I'm impressed with everything you're doing. Mary, you know how I feel about you, and I feel it's a privilege and an honor to be on your show every time you invite me. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Leon.
Yeah, well said, guys, as always. Yeah, the battle's ongoing. Mayor, you said earlier, I couldn't agree more. I wish I could be fly fishing, doing other things than this, but we do. What can we do? We don't have a choice. So we have to fight, and hopefully people like ourselves and others will inspire the rest of us. Jews or other Jews. Some of my biggest followers, by the way, are righteous Gentiles, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever, we need to enlist our help, whoever they are. And the good news is you won't believe it, but I'd say in the last month, I've seen more emails coming to people, from some of my contacts, going out
Right.
to people who need to get them. So I am going to look up what's it called, Scotia Tower? What's the proper name of the
Bank
event?
Arena.
Scotia
Say
Bank
again?
Arena.
Bank Arena.
Scotia Bank Arena. I'm gonna go to their website, and I'm sure there's a contact button somewhere, and I'm gonna put in my little 2 cents, and I'm gonna copy and paste it and send it out to all my contacts, and hopefully I'll inspire others to send them. The more stuff they get, the more chance we have in succeeding in not having them there ever again.
Right. Absolutely.
Amen.
Absolutely. Well, I think we have a song that we're going to conclude the show with.
That we do. I just want to make one comment. One of the gentlemen who, Ron, you brought to my attention, who was making these blatantly, not only anti-Semitic, but anti-Zionist, blaming Zionists for the pandemic, who had the nerve to chime into our chat. Not only
Right.
that, but his false name is
Yeah.
the rabbi who started Chabad. This is, I
Right.
can't help but to show you.
Yeah, I saw that.
This is a couple of, just two of his comments. And here's the rabbi who he has the nerve to offend in a public forum. So that's a Rabbi Shneur Laman of Ladi, who was the founder of the first Rebbe Chabad. And that's the name this anti-Semite goes by on his social media. You don't like an objective opinion. Yeah, we do, but his opinion isn't objective. And anti-Semitism because of the Zionists in the government. I mean, and he has a nerve to chime into our show, which isn't that bad, but to blaspheme the name of Rabbi Zalman
Right.
is a shanda. So on that
Yeah.
note, I'm going
Agreed.
to play a closing song, okay?
Perfect.
Which I know we all love and admire, and let's see if I can find it.
Absolutely.
And
קולות בלב בנימה, נפש יהודית